I'm Andreas Blum, parish priest to the German-speaking Catholic parish of St. Boniface in London.
And I'm Barbara Höfling, singer and director of the German Choir of London. Welcome to our podcast on theology and music.
Christianity begins with the story of the Passion, with horror and grief at the violent death of a human being. But many people crossed Jesus' path of suffering, whether indifferent, reluctant, powerless, compassionate, faithful or supportive.
In words and music, we want to try to put ourselves in the place of these people and look at where they touch our own lives, these minor figures in the biblical Passion story.
After Jesus is nailed to the cross, he is in a lonely place. The spectacle is over. All that is left is for his life to waste away. The onlookers and gawkers turn round and go home, for a death agony on the cross could last up to 4 days. Anyway, the bloody sight was not for the faint-hearted. Even when the dying men were handed a sponge soaked in vinegar to quench their thirst in a gesture of compassion, it was really just another act of cruelty which prolonged their ordeal. Nevertheless, some people stay put under the cross of Jesus. They are mainly women. As economical as the Gospel's descriptions of the crucifixion are, almost all take the time to mention each woman by name, which they didn't do earlier for the weeping women at the crossroads. What is the difference? Now they are showing us not just a general human outpouring of mourning and compassion, but how specific individuals made a statement of allegiance. And it was a statement to literally stand by a criminal who was being put to death in the most shameful way known to the ancient world. If you did this, you could also very soon suffer unpleasant consequences yourself. Among the women is Mary, the mother of Jesus. For parents, to lose a child has always been one of the worst things imaginable. But what if the child is condemned and murdered by the state when he is innocent? If one has to watch his death throes but can do nothing to help? Such a feeling of powerlessness must push every human to the edge of sanity. The wise Simeon had foretold this to Mary long ago when she came to the temple to give thanks for the birth of Jesus. And a sword will pierce your soul too. At this moment, Mary's pain is so unbearable that she cannot even weep or lament. Instead, her son will now get to work once more, one last time, as he has been doing all his life. From now on, he will be at work in the lives of those who come after him too. The relationship between Jesus and his mother will not have been an easy one. Time and again in the Gospels we catch a glimpse of an almost cool distance. The most obvious is certainly in that scene where he snubs Mary, leaving her and his brothers at the door, and instead calling his disciples his mother and his brothers. Anyone, he says, who does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. It is not that Jesus rejects family and what it stands for at all, but he looks beyond the narrow confines of biological descent and sets up new and more far-reaching relationships. He does the same now on the cross. Jesus sees his mother and the disciple whom he loved. And to his mother he says, "Woman, this is your son." And to the disciple, "This is your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his home. The matter-of-fact address, "woman," must sound abrupt even to an outsider. Why can't Jesus even now say mother or Ima, mama? He had once expressly urged his disciples to say the counterpart, Abba, Papa, when he said, "When you pray, pray like this, Abba, our Father in heaven." But for Jesus, the intimate parental address seems reserved for heaven. And when he addresses Mary under the cross simply as woman, he in no way wants to offend her, but is principally emphasizing his divine origin. We might see Jesus as keeping his distance, but he doesn't leave Mary on her own. On the contrary, she is confided to the care of the favorite disciple, whom she is to see as nothing less than her son. Usually, this favorite disciple is identified with the Apostle John, but we don't know for sure, nor do we need to know. For his anonymity allows us to see in him a role model, which draws all who know they are loved by Jesus into this biblical scene and into the new web of relationships that Jesus is creating. It is his last will, his legacy, his mission. See one another. Become brother, sister, and mother to each other. In the film The Passion of Christ, which was as successful as it was controversial, there is a completely fictitious but wonderfully sensitive scene. The film strives so desperately for authenticity, but it is this scene, above all, which makes it honest and worth taking seriously. While Mary accompanies the way of the cross and sees Jesus collapse under the cross again and again, an incident from his childhood suddenly comes to her mind. It is an everyday situation with which we will all be familiar. Jesus is playing in front of the house when he falls down and bloodies his knee. His mother rushes over, takes him on her lap and comforts him. In contrast with the way of the cross, the scene makes it painfully obvious how much Mary would like to help her son now, although she is no longer able to. The times when she could comfort him and kiss him better are over. What is left for her now? Powerlessness and grief can paralyze, to the point where they make everything seem meaningless and threaten to stifle any will to live, so paralyzing us even more and letting pain rule our lives. How can we escape this vicious circle? The almost paradoxical answer of the crucified is by turning away from one's own suffering and paying attention to others. And he shows us how this goes. Even at the hour of his death, he sees Mary and John. It is surely no coincidence that people come together in difficult times, and from this togetherness grows a coping power that is far greater than the sum of what individuals can achieve on their own. A strong and unifying "we are there for each other" works wonders. People and communities suddenly rise above themselves, achieve great things and overcome incredible obstacles by caring for each other. It's enough to make one regain one's faith in humanity. But why do we have to have the great disaster first? Why is it that in good times we so seldom succeed in doing what goes without saying in difficult times? When Cain had slain his brother Abel, he hypocritically asked God, "Am I my brother's guardian?" God did not answer then. He waited until today, until the cross, where it is not only Mary and John whom he entrusts to each other. Look, we are all entrusted to each other, always.